Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich.
Peggy Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, spotlighting the New Orleans area's arts and entertainment scene. Seated at our table tonight, he's back, Jeremy Langlois, executive chef for Latil's Landing at the Hourmas House Plantation. So good to see you again.
Oh,
hey.
It's so great to be back. It's been a while. I'm so excited to be back.
Oh,
Thanks for having me.
We're thrilled. Poppy Tooker, host of the radio program Louisiana Eats, airing twice weekly on WWNO Radio. Hello,
Peggy.
Dear. Hi there. And it's been a while too. Novelist and essayist Nathaniel Rich, author of the novel King Zeno. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks for having me back.
Hey.
Great to be here.
Oh, and Alan Smason, of course, of theatercriticism.com. First up, Miss Poppy.
Well, you know, it's king cake time, and it's going to go on for a long time. And of course, this weekend there's actually that king cake festival going on at the Superdome.
Yes.
However, I already believe I may have picked my winning king cake of the season. This is the king cake from Willa Jean Bakery. Oh. It's gorgeous. A caramel crunch king cake. I want you to note, it's got that beautiful hard sugar glaze on the outside, but it's super moist on the inside, and it's got a cinnamon swirl with crunchy caramel and a cream cheese glaze. And of course, that's coming from Kelly Fields Baker, Bronwyn Wyatt. Of course, there's a baby. It's really good. So. Don't miss this king cake this season. Trust me. Now, king cake, it's everywhere, you know. At Kingfish on Charter Street, they're making little individual hand pies, little fried hand pies, and I don't know how the inside stays in there. It's this creamy, yummy, cinnamon yumminess, and that's right there on Charter Street at Kingfish. Then just down from Kingfish, you can go to Sobu and enjoy a king cake old-fashioned. And Peggy, I want you to catch that purple king cake baby. You see his butt? He's buried in the ice cube. And also there's king cake beignets at Sobu, which are buttermilk drop beignets topped with ginger whipped frosting and carnival sprinkles. And some big food news from Sobu. Sobu's original chef, Juan Carlos Gonzalez, has returned to Puerto Rico. I don't know, Alan, maybe he needed to see Hamilton. I'm really not sure. But Chef Tori McPhail, who is, of course, a partner in Sobu and Commander's lauded executive chef, he's minding the kitchen there a lot these days. So he's actually the one who created those king cake beignets, and Juan Carlos's foie gras beignets are still on the menu there. Be still my heart. Then, big food news. Bar Francis is having a dinner. There's a few seats left. Bubbles around the world, including bubbles from Argentina, Spain, California, and of course, France. I think this is a great idea for an early Valentine for champagne lovers. It's Thursday, February 7th. 4 courses with champagne pairings, only $75. Murder Point oysters, English peas, and lobster with champagne butter and mint gremolata. There's an intermezzo of white grapes and basil, a beef fillet with a sweet potato dauphinoise, Swiss chard, black truffle, sour cherry beef reduction. Marcus Woodham, I love his food. Strawberry and lime gooey cake with pistachio crumbles for dessert. And of course, Mark and Candace Latter, who are the force behind Bar Francis, are just incredible wine experts these days. They had that wine business that was a retail store and magazine, but stay tuned. Coming soon, Claret on Magazine, their new wine bar, where Marcus is making all the charcuterie in-house. So get ready. That's more food news coming down the pipe.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Peg.
Speaking of more food news, Chef Jeremy, who of course was at Hourmas House for many years, left for a little while, but now you're back.
I'm back, baby.
And it's so exciting because Hourmas House continues to grow. Now it's also an inn, so people can stay overnight.
Absolutely.
But you've got 2 restaurants going on?
Well, 3 actually. You know, at
okay.
any one time we could have multiple things going on. You know, we're open 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, dinner. So if you stay overnight at the inn, we'll have breakfast for you in the morning. We have our cafe during the day, which is a little more casual, but we still get really creative with some of our lunch specials and things like that we do during the day. Then at the evening, we have 2 different sites because the property's so big, 35 acres.
So gorgeous.
We have the Carriage House restaurant, which is our new restaurant, which is in the back part of the property. And then we have our small, intimate, fine dining prefix menu in Latil's, which sits in the oldest part of the house of Hourmas house. Some of the wood floors date back to 1773, that the actual house, older than Louisiana, purchased.
Now, I seem to recall that, of course, and what is to tell us about that? Ooh,
that's our community coffee marinated rack of lamb right there.
Oh, yes, I remember when you created that. Okay. Now, I understand, of course, the owner is Kevin Kelly, and he's always thinking of new things to add to the property, including a river, Mississippi River Interpretive Center coming on next fall, a new museum. But I seem to recall that you have the world's most fabulous kitchen.
Oh yeah, we have 2 great kitchens. Yeah, not just that, but like you said, I mean, the property is always growing. I mean, Kevin's vision, as far as, you know, I just try to keep up with the food. You know, and if he can find a new place for us to serve somebody food, we will do it.
I guess the reference I'm making is though when Treme was being produced.
Oh yeah, sure. That's right. Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. When the show Treme wrapped, they had a set in one of Kevin's buildings, and they had built this ridiculous set that was, the prop master told me it was representing Le Bernardin's kitchen in New York, and they had replicated it to the T.
Yeah, I never heard this.
Yeah, including this range that they had, this most beautiful French flat top range that is what they have in their restaurant. Well, when the show wraps, the department just sells off all the stuff. So we went in and were able to get that stuff for a fraction of the price. And I mean, it's just been fantastic the way it all kind of worked out.
Now I know you do a lot of farm to table because you all have some gardens too.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
gardens.
literally, I was just in the gardens 2 mornings ago. It was a perfect time to harvest all these winter greens, mustard greens, shards, kale, stuff like that. We harvested all that, stewed that down, packed it, served some, froze the rest, and then not just that, but we had all this beautiful citrus that I just went in, kumquats and satsumas. We harvest, we make chutneys and preserves. We'll be serving that. You were talking about, man, that foie gras. Beignet or king cake sounds amazing. We do foie gras pan perdu, and then where we make some pan perdu with a piece of seared foie gras on top, and then we serve some of the kumquat chutney that we've preserved all year. We'll put that on top as well.
Now we should recall a bit of history because really one of your mentors was John Foles.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be at this table right now if it wasn't for Chef Foles. You know, you were asking me how I got my start, and I had just started out. I had never cooked a thing in my life until I cooked at the kitchen at White Oak Plantation, where I'd started out as a dishwasher.
When I was 16.
I was 16. I could have. My older brother got me the job. I just wanted some money to have some gas money. I could have been washing dishes anywhere. No disrespect to Denny's, but that would have been fine. But I happened to end up in a restaurant or a facility owned by Chef John Foles. I fell in love with cooking. He took me under his wing at that early age of 16, and I mean, and we still are in contact to this day. But he gave me a full scholarship to Nicholls State. He made me his executive chef at Lafitte's Landing when I was just 22 years old in 2001. Whenever he needed someone to replace, he's like, oh, I can look outside, but he gave me the opportunity. So he really took me under his wing, and like I said, I'd be nowhere without him.
Well, we're glad you're back. Yay. Good news. And New Orleans Magazine's quiz queen, Julia Street, has a question for us. Last time, Chick Raviglia gave us the names of the team the Saints scored their very first touchdown against and the stadium that game was in. The answers are, of course, Los Angeles and Tulane Stadium, a.k.a. the Sugar Bowl Stadium. Now tonight's question. In the 2010 Super Bowl, what team did the Saints play against, and what group performed at halftime? Email your answers to steppinout@wyes.org. Our prize is a year's subscription to Louisiana Life magazine. Look at that great cover.
Great.
And an apron with the message, how Merlot can you go, from our friends at wearablevegetables.com. You can go to wyes.org for our online calendar to see our lineup of events, including do not miss the Duke d'Orléans Art Collection, which is only on till Sunday at NOMA. And don't miss the Save Our Sponge concert next Thursday with music performances by Tom McDermott and Joe Crown, benefiting the Woodlands Conservancy Organization. That's at the Jazz Market. You can also link to our WYES YouTube channel to see our program. Now, Nathaniel, and as I've already shared this, I love your book, okay?
Thank you.
And I think especially in light of, the tricentennial, I think more and more people realize that New Orleans history is worth looking back and investigating. And you really looked back at 100 now plus years ago. So many things going on. We take for granted things like the Industrial Canal, but you chronicle that. You talk about early jazz, all these concurrent stories. How long did you work on the research for this?
Oh, that was the most fun part, because I didn't actually have to do any writing. I just got to read great stories about New Orleans history. But yeah, probably a couple years is the answer. The whole book took about 5 or 6 years to write.
Wow.
And I kept going back to the primary sources. But what became clear to me pretty early on is that New Orleans history, for all its quirks and eccentricities, is really American history. It's a microcosm of all of the struggles that we've gone through, and the birth of our culture you can see playing out in these years as jazz, for instance, is on the verge of breaking out. And of course, race in New Orleans at the time you don't have to strain too hard to see parallels with today. And so I felt it was exciting to write about a historical period, but it felt very contemporary in ways that surprised me.
And of course, World War I,
yeah,
at
end
the time
of the war.
that.
Yeah.
And the good news is that it's in paperback.
It
Hold
is.
up the paperback.
Yeah, here we go. New
there
cover.
You go. Wait, here we go.
Here we go. Yeah.
Dear Vanna White.
In front of my face.
Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
there. Okay.
And there's a little map in there.
Bloody, mud spattered. We got a horn. We got the 1918 map. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and of course, the Axemen is also waiting in the wings.
Right,
yeah,
okay,
haunting
of course. And that,
everything.
just refresh our memory on that in terms of
who
that was.
The Axemen,
yeah,
right. So it's 1918, all of this stuff is going on. The only thing anyone in New Orleans cares about is these horrific murders that are being committed by someone wielding an axe. And at the height of this panic, there's a letter that's written to the Times-Picayune saying, on such and such a Tuesday night, I'm going to go around New Orleans with my axe, and I will kill anyone who's not playing jazz music. And so as of that day, New Orleans welcomed jazz into their lives. And that sort of, those murders have never been solved until now.
And of course, also the Italian community, which very much was downtrodden at that point. The Axeman unfortunately reserved his axe for some poor members of that community.
Yeah, it was a lot of Italian grocers were targeted, but they weren't all of the victims. So it's a bit murky, but I think I've solved it, and all is revealed in the novel. Yeah, all is revealed.
All right,
yeah.
Well, great. So what do you have coming up?
Well, I'm going to do a couple of events for the paperback edition. I'm going to be at Tennessee Williams Festival in March. I'm doing an event at Jambalaya Festival in Houma. But then in April, I have another book coming out, a different kind of narrative, also historical, but an adaptation of a New York Times Magazine piece that I wrote that was published in August. That was the entire issue of the magazine, and it's now expanded into a book, and it's a story of a few folks who first really perceived of the climate change crisis beginning in 1979 and fought over a 10-year period to try to solve it before it was too late. And it's that story of heroism and tragedy, and again, a lot of the conversations and fights they were having then you see playing out to this day.
And of course, you have another novel, an earlier novel, and then a book on San Francisco, movies made in San Francisco.
Yeah, that was my first thing that when I was in my early 20s, I went to San Francisco and wrote a crazy book about film noir in San Francisco, which I guess there's certainly a noir element in King Zeno. I drew upon that 2 years of watching film noir, 2 movies a day for 2 years.
It's a good gig, Nathaniel.
Yeah, no, it was great.
It's a good gig.
It was great.
Well, we're glad you're with us.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the new book and the current one. And earlier today, director A.J. Allegra and actress Kristin Shoffner, as well as composer and accompanist Jack Kraft, shared some moments from the world premiere of their play, The Stockholm Syndrome, now at the Little Gem Saloon. The NOLA Project's slogan, if you will, is theater for the bold. And yet another time we've got this. A.J. Allegra, artistic director for NOLA Project. It's the Stockholm Syndrome.
Or remember the time that Jimmy's All-American Beefsteak place was taken over by that group of radicals.
Well, once again, another show that's site-specific.
Absolutely.
But if you're not into audience participation, do not worry about that, because some of us are not into audience participation.
No, this is theater, immersive theater, which is very different from interactive theater. Interactive theater really makes the audience participate either, vocally or physically. Immersive theater just is theater that happens all around you in a realistic setting. Rather than fabricate a restaurant, we actually set the show in a restaurant in which the show happens all around you as you're seated at your table.
And of course, the actual location is the Little Gem Saloon right there
on
Rampart.
Upstairs at the Ramp Room.
Yeah,
beautiful
and you can
location.
Go and eat. You can actually go and eat before you see the show.
Yeah, we encourage that. Yeah, you can come in an hour before the show and sit down at Jimmy's, which we've transformed the Ramp Room, which is normally a very elegant room, into this chintzy 90s style chain restaurant called Jimmy's All-American. So you can come and have dinner beforehand.
Now, as some people may know, that the Stockholm Syndrome means that if somebody is kidnapped, you fall in love with your abductor.
Right, yes. It was coined in the 1970s due to an incident in Stockholm where someone was taken hostage and then fell in love with the captor and refused to really press charges. But yeah, so the musical is about a hostage crisis that occurs within a chain restaurant in which the restaurant employees and even some of the customers there that are, actors, customers, basically fall in love with the captors.
Well, this is the world premiere of this New York Playwrights.
Absolutely,
work.
Yeah.
And the music, though, is locally done. Explain.
Yes. So Adam Simkowitz, a New York-based playwright, wrote the work, and then he also included in it lots of songs. And so the songs we had composed by local composers Jack Kraft and Skylar Stroop, who most people know from the band Sweet Crude. And Jack and Skylar have worked with the NOLA Project on many original collaborations, composing music when we've needed it in past shows. So this is a really great opportunity to blend New York and New Orleans cultures together to create a world premiere work.
And who we're going to hear from?
And we're going to hear Kristin Shoffner, who plays Lynx, who is the lead hostage taker, who has a very sordid history with the restaurant and with Jimmy, the owner.
The name of the song?
The song is Daddy Never Called.
All right, and now let's hear from them.
I used to love being here. The sounds, the smells, my toys on the wall, and greeting each customer like I knew them all. We made a ton of commercials. He opened stores near and far. As our world got bigger and brighter, I was still his little star. 'Cause no matter how busy or how many miles away, he would call me each night just to say, my darling, one day you'll see it was all for you. My love, I know we'll both be huge, rich, fancy, and famous. My dear, I owe it all to you. I I was too young to see it, but the fame had made things tough. From the fights to the booze to a waitress or two, Mom had had enough. She packed my clothes in a cardboard box. We left everything behind. And the last thing he said to me was, "Cut it out, kid. No one likes a crier." I thought fathers were fathers, no matter how far away. So I waited for his call each day. But days turned to weeks, turned to months, and like a good girl, I sat tight. He missed a Christmas and a couple birthdays. I guess the timing wasn't right. Bullies, mistakes, bad luck, bad breaks. After a while, you get used to the heartache. Still, I'm crazy, waiting for a call. Fall after fall after fall. Mom passed after turning 55. We couldn't afford the treatment. At least the doctors tried. No matter how busy or how many miles away, I still wonder, will he call? Will he say anything, anything at all? But Daddy never called. Daddy never called. Daddy never called.
A reminder, you can see the Stockholm Syndrome now until February the 2nd at the Little Gem Saloon on South Rampart. Visit the NOLA Project's website for tickets. Alan.
Well, there's some sad news to start off. The local music community was struck by the fact that Milton Bush, the co-founder of the Summer Pops Orchestra, the New Orleans Symphony Orchestra, passed away on Wednesday afternoon. He was also the longtime band leader for UNO and Martin Berman, as well as JFK High Schools. He was a great trombonist. I think we see him here with Delfeayo Marsalis. Also a highly regarded arranger and composer in his own right. He was considered the go-to guy for arrangements for strings, and believe it or not, worked on two of Fats Domino's two biggest hits, Walking to New Orleans and I Want to Walk You Home. Again, funeral arrangements are incomplete at this time, but a big, big loss for the music community. Now, meanwhile, back in 2014, the Tony Award for Best Musical was A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. This is a wonderful work that was crafted by Stephen Lutvak and Robert Friedman. It took about 10 years for them to develop. Now, there are four leads. Monty Navarro, played by Kevin Murphy, his girlfriend Sabella, who played by Sarah Carlton, his cousin and other love interest Phoebe, played by Rachel Looney, and then 7 to 8 other parts played by Ricky Graham, of course, cast the entire Dicewith family, if you will. And then there's also a wonderful ensemble that is supporting there. Inspired really by a 20th century early novel called Israel Rank, the Autobiography of a Criminal, written by Roy Horniman. This was later turned into a movie starring Alec Guinness called Kind Hearts and Coronets. Well, Monty finds out that he's ninth in line for the Dicewith earldom, and of course, a fancy castle, high hearse to boot. He wants to impress his girlfriend. He embarks on a journey to claim his birthright, and slowly the Dicewith family members all meet with their own demise, all played by Ricky Graham, and they start to drop like flies. The leads are all marvelous. I got to tell you, Kevin Murphy, Sarah Carlton, and Rachel Looney, whose voice is absolutely luminescent. It really soars in the show. Ricky Graham does his comic best up with the changing of the costumes. I found him a little, maybe slightly overwhelmed by the constant changing, etc. But I think he's getting into the role. He's very funny, and I think the show really, is a little bit more confining than his usual comic persona, in which he's able to do a little bit more on the outer edges. A shout out to Tracy Collins, Maggie Windler, Bryce Slocum, Adam so great for all of their work. And above all, director Christina Pellegrini, who, of course, is the wife of Maxwell Williams, the artistic director at Le Petit, who helped put on this work in New Haven years ago. Music director Michael McKelvey, costume designer Casey Thomasy, and scenic designer Christopher Thompson. All of them did quality work. Again, I recommend this show very highly. And again, Super Bowl anti-programming, if you will. Next Sunday, go check it out at Le Petit, Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. Now, speaking of Broadway, the Whitney Hancock Bank series for the Broadway Across New Orleans season has just been announced. First off, returning the national tour of Wicked, playing in October for the first 2.5 weeks there. And then, of course, finally, the 2017 Best Musical, one of the most successful still on Broadway, of course, is Dear Evan Hansen, written by Paige Pasek and Justin Paul, with a book by Stephen Levinson. It's the story of what happens when a lie spins out of control with the help of the internet. Pasek and Paul also return after November with Dear Evan Hansen. In December, they return with A Christmas Story, the musical. If you find out again whether or not Ralphie will get his official Red Ryder carbine action 200-shot range model air rifle with a thing on it that tells time. And again, the national tour of the recent revival of Miss Saigon is here in 2020, if you will, 2020. And then the national tour of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, written by Mark Shaman. I love this as well. Not only Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman doing the music and lyrics, but also some of the best loved songs from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory by Anthony Newley and Leslie Brickus. Then Tina Fey's Mean Girls comes here in March. Another regional premiere of Stephen Flaherty's and Lynn Aaron's Anastasia arrives in April. And finally, one of the finest productions of Fiddler on the Roof will be here. Okay, thank you so much. And now it's time for our picks. Jeremy.
Well, Valentine's Day is coming up, so make your reservations at Hourmas house.
Okay, Poppy.
Well, I mentioned the King Cake Festival this weekend, but next weekend, mark your calendar for the Vietnamese Tet Festival out in New Orleans East.
All right, Nathaniel.
We need more trees planted in this city. NOLA Tree Project is a great organization, and they're giving away free trees, olives, satsumas, avocado over on Algiers. Website? Yeah, big treesy project.
Okay, it's carnival time. Is going to be the LPO at Roussel Hall tomorrow, rather Sunday, I should say. And then Anthony Latour is going to be the guest at that event that we talked about, the 34th Annual Louisiana American Italian Sports Hall of Fame Gala, so don't forget that as well.
So Anthony Latour is
correct.
One of his
He's going to be here.
Too.
And again, you know, we didn't have enough time to mention, but a couple things happening at Rivertown as well, and the Ball and All with Ricky Graham as well. I wanted to mention
next week. Okay, great. Thank you. And my picks. The Amici organization will be putting on district and regional auditions for the Metropolitan Opera this weekend at Tulane's Dixon Hall. The New Orleans district auditions are tomorrow at 10 a.m. and are free and open to the public, and then the regional auditions are Sunday at 1 p.m. and are just $10 per person. Visit Amici's website for more info. And Vance and the Valiants and Mardi Gras legend Al Carnival Time Johnson, along with Rockin' Doopsie and the Top Cats, will be there, as well as Lisa Lane, who sang the original All I Want for Christmas Is You. They're all performing next Friday night at Harrah's Casino on Canal Street. Tickets can be purchased, of course, through Ticketmaster.com. And thank you all so very much for watching, and good night.